right, Canada, it's time for your take. And you know, it's something that all of us who are working think about at some point in our careers, whether we are being paid fairly or not. Now, Kelsey, Priya, good morning.
Good morning.
Would it surprise you if I told you that 40%, 47% of people surveyed feel that they weren't being paid fairly?
It surprises me that it's that low. I feel like a lot of people feel like they're underpaid, at least the majority of people I talk to. And I think partly because people don't feel confident going into negotiations to negotiate for higher. Or even if you do negotiate and then you just get hit with a hard no, you just kind of give up there. And so I thought it would be a lot more.
I'm glad you bring that up because we actually have some tips that we're going to give people coming up. But how about you, Priya?
I feel the same. I feel like I've had a lot of conversations with friends who say they feel underpaid, but the same thing. It's tough to know, how do you ask for that raise with, being strong and firm, but also not being too aggressive and losing your job.
Yeah, for real. And that's what we're talking about today because the survey basically said 47% of workers who were polled felt like they were being shortchanged. But there's a bit of good news. 51% of workers felt that they were being paid fairly. But what was kind of an eye-opener were the remaining 2% felt that they were being overpaid. I didn't think anybody would admit that, but they did.
No, and I just say kudos to them for obviously nailing the negotiations.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously, give everyone else some tips.
It's important, right? Well, we know that, over the years, the average wage across Canada has been slowly increasing. I mean, as of September of 2017, the average wage for Canadian employees was just over $50,000 per year. And in fact, if you want to make the most money, you kind of have to go to Alberta. Shout out Kelsey to Calgary.
No surprise there.
Yeah, but the average wage there is just under $60,000, and at the bottom of the list is PEI, just over $42,000. So it does vary depending which province you're in, but it also depends on the economy of that province. We know that resource-rich provinces like Alberta and Newfoundland, you do make a little bit more money. If you don't have those resources, then sometimes you're on the lower end. But then, cost of living also is a big factor. So one of the biggest things is, how do you ask for more money? Like, this is something we really wanted to get into. We wanted to provide some tips to people because you might be thinking about that right now. So let's get to it, because one of the biggest things is share your goals and ask for feedback. I don't know if this is something that you guys have done in your career, but it's important to share where do you want to get to in your career, but also ask for feedback to know if you're on the right track or if you're off the road, you need to get back on. To have those conversations with your boss, but also try to take on more responsibility. That's a big one.
Yes, and I feel like that's a way to get your boss to sort of see the value in investing in you and kind of keeping you around and maybe giving you that raise.
And just because you've done something for quote-unquote free at first doesn't mean you always have to. Say you've taken on more responsibility and you've done it for a year successfully, then you say, okay, now I've done this for you, now I need a little bit from you, and you can enter into the negotiation at that point.
Exactly. And one big one as well is to proactively communicate wins. If you're doing a good job, you have to be your own biggest booster, or else who else is going to do that?
I keep a journal, like a work journal, and I enter in all the different tasks I do and when I do it well. And so then that way, when I go into a conversation with our boss, I have it on paper because I get nervous and I get stressed out that I'm sounding too braggy, I guess. So I just write it down, I read from the paper, and then that helps me get all my goals out.
I really want to make sure we get this point out because you got to focus on why you deserve it, not why you need it.
Right.
We know cost of living goes up, but no employer cares. I'm not saying that you don't care, but they want to hear why you deserve it. What have you done for me lately? And why should I be giving you more money? So this is where it goes back to communicate the wins that you're doing. Continuously get feedback, right? So these are just some tips that we're putting out there for you if you're thinking about you need to ask for a raise, Canada. But here's your hashtag Your Take question. Do you think you are paid fairly? We love to have a family discussion, so chime in right now with us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, even on his Instagram. We want to hear from you. Right after the break, we have more news and weather. Stay with us.